Welcome to this video. We are going to be looking at the Git and GitHub. These are very important tools, especially in DevOps. It's not just in DevOps, also in software development lifecycle. So we're going to see exactly what they do and why they are very important, especially when you are developing a software. We have Git here and we have GitHub, as you can see from this image. I believe by the end of this video, you should be able to define and also be able to see the difference between the two. We are going to start with asking ourselves, what is Git? And here I have tried to explain in a very simple way that Git is nothing but it's just a distributed version control system. And the work of Git is to handle everything from a small to a large project. It's usually used in both small and big companies. And a lot of people love it because of the speed and also efficiency. One of the key features of Git is that it allows multiple developers to work on the same project simultaneously. Another key feature that make companies and also people who develop software and also DevOps to prefer Git is because of its ability to track changes. When you say you are able to track changes here, we are referring to what we call the source code. The source code is nothing but is usually a code that is in the form of files and folders. And this code usually contain the information. Specifically, we can say the code, it can be infrastructure as code. It can be the code that is part of the features of the software. And this code is usually stored in what we call a source code. So now anybody who make changes to that source code, that change should be tracked. You need to track the changes, because if you are not tracking changes, and we happen, of course, to have an issue with troubleshooting, then we'll not be able to know exactly who did the changes and at what time the changes was done and what kind of changes was done. So Git is very good in this. So it can track the changes, it can allow multiple developers to work on the same project, and is used for both small and big projects. Now here I have an image, and this image we are looking at Git, which is a distributed version control system. There are two types of version control system. There is distributed and there is centralized. Now here, as you can see, we have multiple working copies, or we have repository here. You can pull a copy from this repository and you can bring it to your local environment and you can have a copy. Another developer can do the same thing and another one can do the same thing. And as a result, you all can be able to work on the same code that is in the same repository, make the changes, and also be able to commit the changes simultaneously without having any conflict. And in case a conflict is going to arise, it's very easy. Git is going to help you to solve it. We are going to see that. Now here we are looking at why Git is important to DevOps engineers. One of the key importance of Git is that it allows what we call collaboration. It also allows version control, which are two key concepts in DevOps. Let's look at the key features that DevOps engineers really like about Git. The first one is branching. With Git, you can create as many branches as you want. And these branches, of course, help in creating what we call parallel development. Or in simple terms, multiple people can work on the same project using different kind of branches, and at the same time be able to merge the changes they are working on their specific branches without having any issue. That's part of collaboration. Again, we have the feature of isolation. It means that when we create a branch, that branch isolates the work that you are doing. And when you're done working on what project or what source code you're working on, you can always merge to the main source code. The second key feature is merging. After you have created your own isolated branch, Git also allows you to be able to integrate the changes from different branches into the main source code. And of course, we have the last feature, which is very important, which is history tracking. Git here in this case is helping, of course, to keep a detailed history of all the changes that are made to the source code. And these changes, of course, are very important. Of course, when you track the changes, in case of any issue with maybe the source code that is running the production, you can easily go back and troubleshoot and see exactly what was done. And you can always revert back to the previous source code that was working. Again, we saw in the previous image that you can always go to the repository. You can pull, of course, or clone a copy, and you can have a copy of what you got from the GitHub. We are going to see GitHub as we continue through this video. Now, let's look at something here I highlighted, and this is very vital. Git also allow or support what we call automation. And this automation is more related to what we call the CI/CD pipeline. It's able to allow this automation because one thing you are going to find out as you continue with this course is the possibility of being able to integrate Git with what we call the CI server. There are many CI servers which we are going to see in this video. If you can automate this process of cloning the code and, of course, moving on to the other steps of software development lifecycle, you're able to enhance what we call consistency and repeatability. We continue with why Git is important to a DevOps engineer. We are now going to look at how Git plays a key role in automation. We're going to start with continuous integration, or what we call CI. Git can be integrated with many CI tools. When it comes to the project, we are going to see Jenkins, or we can see another CI tool called Circle CI. GitLab is another one. When you integrate Git with a CI software or CI tool or CI server, you're able to automate the build and test the process that is triggered by the code changes automatically. So now we don't have to do things manually anymore. Anytime the code has some changes, the CI tool is going to be triggered, and the process of building and testing the code is going to happen automatically. And that's going to be very important because it's going to increase productivity. We have automated CI pipeline that ensure that the code changes are continuously integrated and tested. And this is very easy because it's very important, and also it makes it very easy for the development team because they can be able to catch the issues early in the development lifecycle. We don't have to wait. We can always get the feedback immediately because everything has been automated. And this process now becomes continuous. So we have continuous integration and continuous testing. So in case we have any bugs, it's very easy, of course, to trace the bugs and fix the issue. This process of giving developers continuous feedback is very important because it increases the productivity. Now here is just the same concept. As you can see, we are using the Git, of course, to push the code to the GitHub. And I think this is the best time I can introduce what GitHub is. We saw that we have Git, which is nothing but is a distributed version control system. Then we have GitHub. So what's the difference between the two? They are both version control systems. Git is usually used in your local environment. For instance, you can use it in your own laptop. However, if we want to enhance total collaboration, it means that we can share the code, the source code, with somebody in a different location, then we need to be able to put this Git repository in the internet. And to be able to do that, we need an internet storage. And one of the most famous internet storage for the Git repository is a GitHub. So now, of course, we are going to do everything locally. And then, of course, if we want to share collaboratively with other people on the internet or in other location of the company, we are going to push that code into the GitHub, which is an online store for the Git repository. Then from there, this all has been integrated. And as you can see at the middle of this image, we have Jenkins. Jenkins in this case is nothing but is a CI tool. So it has been integrated with all these tools so that it can automate the process of building and testing. This is a very important concept, especially for the development team, because they can be able to get the feedback immediately. Now here we are going to cover the concept of integration, because we talked a lot about the CI, continuous integration tools. Now, what is integration? Let's start by looking at the code changes. Developers are going to be working on separate branches, or what we call the features, and they are going to be making changes to the code. The CI pipeline, which is nothing but continuous integration pipeline, which is a combination of what you saw in the previous image, can be a combination of Git, GitHub, Jenkins. Of course, we have Maven and Selenium, which we are going to tackle more when we go into the topic of CI/CD pipeline. But for this case, I just want you to understand that the CI pipeline integrates these individual code changes into a common code base. And this is often referred to as integration build or the mainline. When that process is happening, the integrated code is always going to trigger an automated build process to compile the code and run the test. And this is going to ensure that the combined code function correctly and is not going to break the build. Let's go back. As you can see now, here we have a developer who is going to be pushing the code. After writing the code in the local environment, he or she is going to push the code and take the code to our online storage. And this online Git repository storage is GitHub. From there, we have this connected or integrated with CI tool called Jenkins. And Jenkins is also integrated with Maven, which is a build automation tool. And of course, we have here Selenium also integrated, which is going to carry out the tests that are specified in the configuration file for Selenium. Now, what you need to understand is that this process happens automatically and is always triggered by the code change. Whenever a developer makes any changes to the code base, which is what we are calling the mainline, we are going to have this process of building and of course testing happen automatically. And that's very important because developer get the feedback automatically. And of course, we are able to know in case there is no feedback, we are able to know that the code that we have been able to push to the code base actually did not break the build. Because if it breaks the build, an error is produced and that error is sent to the developer. So it's very vital to understand this concept. We continue with the integration, and now we are tackling and focusing on what we call feedback. If there is any issue that is going to be identified during the automated build and test stage or stages, feedback is always going to be automated and immediately given to the developers. And developers can quickly look at the issue and fix it. And that is not only going to help us to increase productivity, but is also going to make sure that the product that we are producing and giving to the customer are far superior because they have been tested tested and over-tested to make sure that they are working the way they should. Let's say that the integration process, which involves building and also testing, has been successful. So what do we do next? Of course, we have to deploy that application to different stages or to different environments. I want you to understand that in the company, we have different kinds of environments. We have what we call the development environment. We have what we call the quality assurance. We do have the production. So development is where developers stay. This is where we are starting and coding the features of the software. We have the quality assurance where we carry out the test to make sure that the features that have been developed from the development environment are working as needed. They are meeting the quality required by the customer. The customer can either be internal or external. Then, of course, we have the production where we are going to be running the code that has been tested, built, and also verify that it meets the quality that the customer needs. We have another concept called CD, which is continuous deployment. Git is always going to be able to integrate with tools that we use for continuous deployment. And this is going to be to help us, of course, to automate the process of deploying the code after it has gone through the continuous integration process and also through the quality assurance environment. It's important to understand that automated continuous deployment pipeline enable the consistency and also create what we call a reliable deployment of application to different environments. And these are the environments I was talking about, which is development, testing, and production. We can call the testing environment to be the environment for quality assurance. As we said when we started, one of the key concepts of DevOps is what we call automation. We are doing all this to make sure that we are able to automate the processes and remove the manual interventions. Now we focus on something that is going to become very famous and very important as we continue with the course. And that is what we call infrastructure as code. You're going to understand that Git is always used to version control infrastructure as code. And this is very important, especially when we are dealing with tools like Terraform. Terraform is a tool that is usually very important in infrastructure versioning. Then, of course, we have Ansible, which is also very important, specifically in the orchestration of servers. It's also very important in the process of automating the configuration management of the environment that we are going to create. So infrastructure changes are tracked. Of course, we can be able to do that because we say that Git is big in tracking the changes that we are making to the code base. And this is also going to help us, of course, in case of any issue with infrastructure, we can always be able to go to the changes and see exactly what was done. And in case the changes did not pass or the changes are causing issues, we can always revert back to the previous copy that was working. So these are a few things that you need to remember. And this is why Git is very vital. Release is very important. We have to be able to manage release. Because whenever all this code has been built and tested, we need to release it to where it needs to go. We might have to release it in the production. We might have to release it in the quality assurance. When we releasing this code, we need, of course, to accompany with different information that can help the people in that environment understand what we have. We also need, of course, to release with what we call the tag and also the version. This is a concept that I'm going to cover when I get to the Git projects. And that is going to be in the next video. So when you are doing release management, it's very important to understand things like Git tags. You need to understand about the release branches that are used to release a specific version of the software. This is very important so that you can have a way of managing and isolating your releases. As you can see, the release branches are very important because they help us to keep the versions of the code base, and we can easily be able to identify, package, and deploy the specific version that we want. However, now today I'm not doing the project. However, you need to go and look at the video, which is going to be released also, which is going to be continuation of this. And that video should help you to understand exactly how release is done in the company. And that's all I have for today. I hope you are able to understand why Git and GitHub are very important. Remember exactly what Git is, and also don't forget about the GitHub. As we said, just to go back, we say that Git is nothing but is a distributed version control system. It's very important because it helps us with the isolation of the code base. It helps us to work in parallel projects together and collaborate with each other. It also helps us, of course, to track the changes that we are making to the main code base. But again, now we have the GitHub where we are able to store the Git in the internet, the Git repository. And this again is to enhance what we call collaboration. In case of any question, don't forget to reach us at this email, itsupport@amazingdevops.com. And also you can visit our website and see exactly other courses we are offering. For this specific course, we are just focusing on Git and GitHub. The next course that is going to follow this is going to be focusing on the Git and GitHub project. So we're going to be doing a lot on that video. So after you are able to go through this video, you can continue with the second one. Thank you so much.